Hi, it's Amelie. Today, for just practicing, we're going to do the second Fantasie by Telemann. So there are 12 of them, and we did the first one last week, so second one this week. It's a live stream. If you have any question, comments, you can leave them in the live stream chat, and I will try to answer them as right away. Okay, so I'll start, and just before I start, if you are looking for a flute, make sure to check the Flute Center of New York. You can go to at flutesforsale.com. It's the number 4, and you can use our code TFC. It gives you perks and it helps us out. It's all in the description below. If you want some t-shirts, mugs, anything we have on our store, just check below. There's shirts like this one. I think people like the fingering chart a lot. There's fingerings, there's scales, and there's trill fingerings on that chart. And if you want lessons with me, you can email us at info@theflutechannel.com, and we'll send you all the information. We do lessons online through Skype. It works very well. So let's start. I think I said everything I had to say.
Esme has a question already. It's
Okay.
very interesting. As someone who's self-taught on the flute, do you have any tips on technique that can help my sound be better?
Okay, someone who's self-taught and wants his sound to be better. It's difficult to say because I don't know exactly how you're playing, but usually what I see the most is people tend to maybe not support enough in general, and they put a lot of effort around the lips and not enough with the air. So air support is more important, I think, than lip position. It's important as well, like everything's important, but I think sometimes we put too much emphasis on this and too much movement, because that's important, but it doesn't move that much. For me, the upper lip when I play doesn't move. It stays pretty steady on the teeth, you know. I don't push it forward. I just let it be there. And the lower lip moves a little bit, like the jaw moves a little bit. It's very little, minute, you know. Like if I play in the low register, it goes a little bit forward if I go higher and a bit back if I go lower, but it's a tiny movement because you don't want to hurt your jaw or anything like that. And I don't know exactly what doesn't work with your sound. What you can do as well is find your favorite note, and usually the note that sounds the best, your position is good on that note. So then look at yourself in the mirror and try to stay in that position for the whole register, like all the registers with the same position. Usually there's not much difference between low and high in the position. So if you have difficulties with the high notes, try to see how you play the low notes and stay in the same position for the high notes. Just use air speed to get the higher notes. Yeah, that's as best as I can do without seeing you. Sometimes getting 1 or 2 lessons, or even maybe 4 lessons on a whole year, even 30 minutes with someone who can give you some retroaction, it's very helpful, because we don't see ourselves and sometimes we don't know what we don't know, so it's tough to get better. Okay, I'm gonna start. So I really like that first movement, the grave. So grave, it means slow, very slow. So I don't know, maybe. Yeah, 46 is a good tempo for that, around there, you know. And like, let's say you practice it with a metronome, it's good because it's good to know how the rhythm works, but eventually you don't have to be completely robotic with the rhythm, you know. It's a fantasy, so it has to feel free. But it's good to practice it with it, because sometimes people tend to do the quarter notes a bit fast and then slow down in the 16th notes because it's harder. So what's easy we tend to do faster, and what's hard we tend to do a bit slower. So like, let's say I do it once with the metronome. Oops, sorry. Oh, you see, I just cracked my E. And for that, when I crack, like, usually I try to send the air just a little bit to the right on the E, and it really helps with not cracking it, because the middle E, F, and F sharp, they're a little bit fragile on the flute. So the E, just give it a slight angle. Like, I don't even move my mouth, it's just like a visualization almost, but it works for me. Okay. You can see that I added a little couple of notes, because that's a fantasy. You're allowed to improvise little ornaments in it, or not improvise them, just pick them. So I added, in the third measure, I added a between the G and the B, and a C between the B and the D. I just made a little passing note, you know. You could even do stuff like that. Okay, and then is there another question?
What edition are you using?
What edition am I using? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry. My edition, I think, was the urtext, so it means like there's no addings by the editor. It's the real way it was written. So you have to pick your own slurs, your own articulations, because the composers in the Baroque period didn't write them. They thought they left a little bit more space to the interpreter, you know, to the performer, the musician playing their piece. So that's why you can add notes here and there, and that's why you can choose your slurs, you know. I tend to slur things that are neighbor notes, like E, D, and C. I would slur them, and if I have an arpeggio or something with notes that are a bit further away from each other, I tend to tongue them. Yeah, you know, and then you can decide to slur by 2, slur by 4. It's really how you feel, you know. Like, let's say second bar, I slur the E, D, and C sharp, and then the other beat I tongue everything, and I do the same in the fourth bar. And then in the sixth bar, I do those 3 together, and then I like this. The G sharp A I slur together because I think it makes it come out well. And yeah, then I tongue pretty much everything in that. And that high D, it's the climax of that movement. Like it's the highest note, it's the peak. So you have to get to there. That's like your goal to get there. Even if it's not on a beat, you know, it doesn't mean like rhythmically it's not a strong beat, and I don't try to make it sound like it is, but you get to that, it's kind of funny because you get to that high level on an upbeat, and then you're going down. Like I feel that type of gravity, you know, in the music there, like gravity is pulling you back down. And then here I do, so that I slur. And when you have the plus sign, it's a trill. And a trill in Baroque music, you have to start it from the top note. So you start on the B and then you do A. And I like to do it in an accelerando. So I start slow and then I go faster. Here I just do at the end. In French we call it mordant. I don't know in English, but it's just E, D sharp, and E. It's not a trill like that goes a turn? A turn. Okay, because it goes down, it doesn't go up. Yeah. So yeah, practice it. If you find the rhythm more difficult in the beginning, or if you think it's difficult for you to follow like a very slow tempo like that, sometimes it's better to put it per 8th note instead of per quarter note. So instead of putting at 46, you put it at 92. You know, it's the same tempo, but da, 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 da. Sometimes when you start and you see it's a bit difficult to go per quarter note, just subdivide. It's a good way to do it. Subdividing, when you learn something, you don't go wrong with that. So that's good for that movement, no question. Let's go to the second one. Okay, so the first one I wrote in my music that it was more like you know, someone coming and giving a speech almost. It's really like I'm here. And then the second one I wrote to do the articulations a bit more soft, you know, like not too, I don't know. I'll see what I'll do. I'll play it once and we'll see what happens. Oh, sorry, I forgot to talk about where to breathe in the first movement. Sorry. It's not that bad. Like, you have space after the long notes, but let's say between 6 and 10 you don't have much space. So what you can do is after that D on bar 6, because I feel that if you do because you always go, those things go together, so it should also go together. So I prefer to breathe after. You can breathe before, like it's your choice, but personally I decide to do it like that. And because I decide to do it like that there, then at bar 8 I breathe after the first note as well. So but I could do but I feel it's going towards that F, so I prefer to do it like that. The important thing is that when you do something, you're convinced of it, so people will follow you and your idea, you know? It's not right or wrong all the time. Like, there's no one way to do things, or else there would be only one musician playing everything. Like, there would be no point for all of us to play as well. Okay, so that was it for the breathing. I'm going back to the second movement. No, I think I'm gonna slur those two notes. So you see you have a bass line here that goes G sharp A, and then second bar F sharp G, and then third bar E F, you know? So you have two flutes playing there. if you hear it. I tried to make it clear. So when you play music for solo flute, especially like those types of pieces, very often you have that idea that there's two flutes playing almost, you know. I went to a concert once with my dad, who's not a musician. It was Keuken playing those pieces, I think. And my dad said, oh, when I close my eyes, sometimes I feel like there's two flutes, because he really made it sound like the bass and the other line, the two lines were really clear. And even if he was not a musician, he could appreciate that the musician was doing that. So I think it's just something to keep in mind. Maybe just by being aware of it, it's gonna be clearer. You know, you're gonna illustrate that idea of the composer. Okay, now what would be a good tempo? I think that's not bad. It's too fast, might be. I'll try like that. Let's see. No, I think I'm gonna do. I think the bass notes. Oh yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. The bass notes, I'm gonna tongue them, but when I have neighbor notes on the soprano line, I'm gonna slur them. This way, it's gonna give even more of a contrast between the two lines. Because at that speed, it's difficult to make it really stick out the two lines. Maybe I would do it a tiny bit slower than that. Because also those are dances usually in Baroque music. They love to use dances. Maybe I would do it a bit slower. So now I know where I have to check, you know, there's some places that I would have to work on. Like the same advice goes for this piece. You can start slowly and subdivide, you know, put it at the 8th note and go da da dum bum bum, and then you go a bit faster and then a bit faster, and then you put it, instead of per 8th note, you put it per quarter note, your metronome. Yeah. So that's that. Here too, you're allowed to add little things. So let's say at bar 15, I go. But if you want, when you do this bar 16, that's almost the same. You could do. So instead of doing E, G at 16, instead of doing E, G, and C, I did instead of doing that, I did a triplet instead of 2 notes, and I did G, E, C, and then C, 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 C. It's just like you don't have to do that, but you can decide that you're going to put an ornament here and there, and it's totally fine. Like at bar 20, I do a little turn at the end. So I go B, C, B, A, B, C. And yeah, I do little things like that here and there. Also, when you have echoes, you know, you repeat the same thing. You can do it piano the second time. And for breathing, it's pretty okay. Like usually when you have on the first beat of a bar, when you have an 8th note and then 2/16, after the 8th note is a good spot to breathe. And then you also have little rests here and there. So yeah, I'm gonna play it once more, just like that. And also, like, let's say you have difficulties with bars 18, 19, you know, doing no, I like it better like that. I wrote it like all slurred, but I prefer slurred by 2. You're also allowed to change your mind, you know. Okay. So here, you could practice it with rhythms like that. Long, short, and then short, long. And then you can practice it one long, 3 short, like let's say 8 note, and then 3 triplets, 16th triplets. And you can do the opposite. You know, it's all good ways to practice these things, or just practice it the way it's written, with different articulations or different tempos, or just slowly with 1 minute a day. You know, if you have a difficulty with a passage, that can work very well. So, and you have a lot of jumps in there, so don't move too much between the jumps, like let's say at 14. Because if you overthink it and you move too much, you might make things worse instead of better. And make sure when you go in the high notes, you're not sending the air outside of your flute. Sometimes people do this. Well, I'll try to do it. Like they visualize it so high that the intonation goes too high, and also sometimes you lose the sound because the flute is underneath you, it's not above. So I try to visualize low here, middle here, and high register there, never above myself, because the air still has to go lower. I'm gonna play it once. at the end, I do a little retardando. Also, just at bar 6, 7, 8, bar 38, you have a cadence there. You know, if you do 37, and then you start again the same thing that you had in the beginning of the movement. So it's a good place to take your time before you can take a bigger breath there. You know, you can go. Because you're restarting the whole thing, and yeah. When you choose your breaths, it's a good idea to write them down. If you change your mind, just erase them and put them somewhere else. But it's a good idea to choose them and try to breathe there pretty much all the time, because it's a good way to train yourself, you know, to breathe in these specific spots. Any question about that movement? No? Okay. Then I'm going to do the Adagio. The Adagio, I think it's a very intimate movement, that movement. I'll play it once and then we'll see what we do with it. Very beautiful, that piece. I decided to add little things here and there. You don't have to do that. You can play just the notes that are there, and it's already very beautiful. And so what would I say about that? Let's find a tempo to begin with. And for that, you can also start by practicing it by 8 notes to make sure you understand the rhythm. And then once it's pretty slow. Maybe I played it too slow. Because Adagio is like taking a walk, you know. But I think it got something spiritual in there, you know. So I feel it slow. And as I said before, you feel it a certain way, you're going to be convincing the people will enjoy listening to you, you know. Maybe I would put 69 or 72 per 8 note, but I would still try to feel it like that's my subdivision, but the way I would feel it is per quarter note. So I would go da 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 dee da da bum ba dum da da dee da da bum ba dum. Because if you accentuate every 8 note, da 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 da, you know, it makes a lot of accentuation, and then you might lose that long line that you want to have in there. I'll try it once with the metronome. Any question? ritardando at the end. Like if I was following the metronome, it'd go. Yeah. But I wouldn't follow it there because you can just to understand the rhythm and then move away from that once you really feel it. I try to make it sound like sometimes there's people answering each other. So let's say so here it's pretty you could think that the is the other character there. So ta 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 is someone, and then ta da da is someone, ta ta da 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 da. So there, it's the same with the other bar. And then here it's very clear for me that at 4, the end of bar 4, so you see, da 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 dum, bum ba bum ba da 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 dum, bum ba bum. It's someone else. You could decide to do it in another way. You could do. But I do the opposite, you know, they're both good. So here you have a cadence. You have. It could end there, but then you have. So I tried to make it sound like it's a new idea, that da da, and so I changed the color there. I changed the sound a little bit. When I say color, really, it's just the timbre of the sound. So. You see, I cut a little bit between the D and the C, the last note and the note just before. They call it in French a césure, you know, like a little cut there. And Baroque musicians do that, you know, like that type of. It almost gives the impression that you're stretching time a little bit. And I think that sometimes when you listen to music and people are accelerating a bit or stretching time a bit, it's I don't know, there's something I feel that's a bit intoxicating about it. Or even when you play music and you're playing with the time a little bit like that, once you really feel it and understand it, you can start playing with it, and it, I don't know, it feels like you're doing something with the time that you don't do in real life. But in music you can play with it, you can make it feel longer or feel shorter. But well, you could say in life too, sometimes the same amount of time can feel very long or very short depending on what you're doing. Okay, so that's for that movement. I think that's pretty okay. For the breathing, like you know, when you have those things, you can breathe there, or you could breathe just before those 6 sextuplets. Then you have the places where you have rests. And when you have a dotted note, you can breathe just after the dotted note when it's appropriate, but it's pretty straightforward for this one. Like at bar 6, I breathe. Because that line tom pa pom goes together, and then I breathe after that tom pa pom da 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 da, because the structure of the piece tells me to breathe there. So no question there. Cool.
Luke says excellent observations as usual, and you donate $5.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you so much. So I will play the Allegro once, and we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll do it once slowly, because I felt little places were not comfortable. Yeah. Maybe I'll do it like that. And also, like, my slowly might not be your slowly, because like when I was learning the flute, I was learning a piece like that would have taken me a while, you know. And after a while, you learn all your scales, and you do studies, and you do pieces, and you kind of learn the vocabulary, and then you recognize it when you read, so it goes faster. But when you're learning the vocabulary, it takes more time, and so you have to be respectful of yourself and of your speed, you know, and not force yourself to go faster than you can, you know, because yeah, it's more. You're learning more than I'm learning when you learn a piece. So let's say maybe you don't know your E minor arpeggio and you're learning it by doing it there, or you know it but not that well. So take your time when you're learning. Don't try to do all of this at once. If it's too much, let it rest, come back. You don't have to read the whole thing all at once. It's better to do less and do it well than do the whole thing without stopping, you know. Okay. I'll do it like that. Sometimes in Baroque music they do stuff like that too. But maybe I'll do it just when I do the repeat. First time I'll do. And second time. So I do short, long, short, long, short, long. And I'll continue at 29. And you see here it's like the beginning. It's the same thing. So you have to know that, you know, you had that little cadence there that ends on the dominant chord. You're like on one leg. You know it's not over. You wouldn't applaud there, and then tam pam pa da dum, and you redo the beginning there. So maybe with a lot of energy that beginning. It's like you're playing a trick on the audience. but like this. Yeah, I think I'll do it like that. I like it like that. Instead of ta ta, I'll do ta 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 ta. Again, it's a choice. I want to do it like that because I feel like it. Maybe if you play it like that, you'll be like, I don't like it. If you don't like it, don't do it because it will sound awkward, you know. So you have repeats there. The second time I'll add little things. So maybe second time I'll go. I'll put a little trill on that note on the G sharp. And then what else could I do? Maybe at 13 I could put a little trill on that A. Oh, it's nice when it's all together like that. Because here it's all chromaticism. Maybe once I'll do it all da 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 da, and maybe another time da 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 da, because he does a lot of those chromatic two notes that go together. So I'll do one time da 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 da, and probably the first time I'll go da 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 da, because that's pretty much how he groups things. And second time I'll do it as one long thing, and then I can also do it on the last note the second time. And then at bar 20 for second time, maybe I would add an E between that C sharp and that A, like, yeah. What else could I do? I could add a little trill on 28 on the G sharp. Yeah, so at the very end, at 38, between the E and the C on the first note of 39, I could put a D. And put a trill on that G sharp. That's what I'm going to do for the second time. For breathing, you have a lot of little rests here and there, and when you have 8 notes, you can also go. If you do them short, you can take tiny breaths there if you really need to. Okay, I'm gonna try it. I'll do the repeats. There's decisions that I took about making some notes longer, and then when I played it I did it shorter because I felt it like that, you know, and it's totally okay. You have to experiment and figure out what works for you and what yeah, what you like, how you like to say it, so I think that's it for that. Take your time. Like you see here at bar 5, I think I had little notes in between. I heard something. So I would practice it and be careful, just do it slowly once. I think it was between the C and the D maybe. So then if I play it again, I would put more attention on the CD, specifically on the fingers going up. So and here we didn't hear notes in between this time. So it's about being aware as well when you practice and hearing those little things. But it also comes with time, because if you're busy listening to one thing, maybe you won't hear a lot of other things. And also sometimes that's why it's good to have a teacher that will say, oh, did you notice you do that? I think it's the job of a teacher, because and also to make you not just tell you, but make sure that you really felt it, that you really heard it, because if you didn't hear it or feel it, how can you move from there? You're not aware that you're doing something. But if not, you can record yourself, you can film yourself, you can play in front of a mirror. It's all different ways to be your own teacher, because when you're busy playing, maybe you don't hear what you're doing as well, because you're too much into it, and playing music requires so much focus that sometimes we're not listening to what we're doing that well. So it's a whole training to listen to ourselves. So I think I can't say much more about that. It's about learning the notes and grouping notes, knowing that you're in this key, like you're in A minor here, and practice your A minor key and all that stuff. You can also, if you want to practice your tuning, you can practice with a tuner. Sometimes it's very good, but you can also put like if you have that, you put a drone and you can play with it. And like sometimes you might want to switch the note if you're on another chord, but sometimes you can just leave it there and try to hear the intervals and try to make them sound good, like no, again. Like that, and sometimes you can put the E, which is the dominant. The fifth note of the scale is the dominant, and very often composers like go to that note as well, or around that note. So you can practice like that and just listen. That will train your ear, because practicing with a tuner, it's amazing because it shows you which notes are too high, too low, what are the tendencies of your flute, and sometimes also it binds together the visual and the auditory. You're like, oh, that's too high, oh, that's how it should sound, and then it puts things back together. But then practicing with a drone is also good, especially in a piece like that. I think it's a good idea. So I'm done for this. Any question?
Yeah, loads. Okay. Christoph Music wants to know, if I had my flute for the past 8 years, would it be recommended to upgrade a new one? I was in middle school when I first got it, so I didn't take the best care of it. It was a low-end $300 flute at the time. So you might want to repeat that.
Okay, so Christoph asks if he should change his flute because he's had it for 8 years and take good care of it, and it's a cheap flute. I would say probably. What you can do is, if you have a good repair person in your around where you live, usually they should tell you if it's worth repairing or if it's better to buy new or used, but good quality used. I had a student who went to get her flute repaired, and the lady, the technician, said, it's not worth putting all that money because it would cost you more than the flute is worth, and we wouldn't even get to that good a level. Like, we're kind of stuck with that. We can't get much better with that flute. So she decided to buy a new flute, but she bought something that she knows she's gonna use her whole life now. She bought a really good flute that now she doesn't have to change ever again. She just has to maintain it. But make sure once you have it that you bring it once in a while, like at least once a year, to the technician for tiny adjustments or cleaning. It depends how much you play, but
That goes to the next question. John Jones, he wants to know, I really want to trial some flutes from the Flute Center of New York. How easy it is to trial from them?
Okay, so someone, what's the name?
John Jones.
John Jones is asking, he wants to try flutes from the Flute Center of New York, and how easy is it? It's very easy. You can call them, or you can go on flutesforsale.com, number 4, and you just ask to try flutes, and they will
set you up. Yeah, you can try 3 to 4 flutes.
You can try, I think, with our code, you can try 4 flutes, and if you don't know what type of flute, all those things, you can call them. They're all flutists there. They'll help you, and please give our code TFC. That helps us out.
Help you out tremendously.
Yeah, and they will help you. And if you want, you can just go on their website. But if you want more assistance, maybe call them. They're very nice there, and they're all very knowledgeable about the flute.
All right, so I have 3 questions that are kind of all together a bit. Gaming Life X wants to know, is practicing 2 hours a day enough? Also, how long do you, and then Jern says, how long do you practice a day when you first start learning, and how long do you practice a day now?
Okay. Okay, so I'll start with the first question. That was, is 2 hours a day enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Is 2 hours a day enough? I would say I have no idea. What I mean by that is it can be too much, it can be not enough, or it can be enough. Usually it should be enough. But what's more important than the amount of time that you're practicing, obviously, like if you just do 5 minutes, you're not going to improve much, but is how focused you are or aware you are when you practice. Because if you're learning mistakes, then maybe you're counterproductive in your practice. So that's one thing. And then it's about also it should be enough 2 hours. And how do you organize your time in those 2 hours? So maybe you do 20 minutes of sound exercises, and then let's say 30 minutes of technique and scales and stuff like that, and then maybe 30 minutes of studies, and then the rest on pieces. Make sure that you allow yourself to progress in every aspect of flute playing, and maybe you split that 2 hour in sections, and also maybe don't do 2 hours at once. Make sure you take breaks. So maybe do 40 minutes or 50 minutes and take a break, then another. Like, I would say 50 minutes, if you want to really do a 2 hour in one solid block, 50 minutes, take a 10-minute break, 50 minutes, and you should be done, or something like that. But it all depends also on your goals, So, yeah. So the other question was, how much do I practice now versus when I started learning the flute?
Yeah.
Okay, so I first started, first few weeks, I don't think I practiced that much because I was like, how do I hold that thing? And it was a lot of effort, so I would get tired very quickly. And then after that, I practiced, like when I was in high school, maybe an hour a day, and I had an hour of band, so that was like, I would play 2 hours, but real practicing probably 1 hour a day. And then when I went to pre-university, I did 2-3 hours a day. In my bachelor's, I did 3 hours a day pretty much. And then when I was doing my master's, I think I sometimes went pretty high to sometimes 5 hours. But sometimes I wouldn't practice. I would study my music, because like not always with my flute like this, because also like for the body, always in that position. Sometimes it's good to practice in different ways, so you don't always need your flute. You can learn your notes, you can analyze the rhythm, especially when you're learning. Sometimes rhythms are like, what is that? Where's the beat? Well, it's more important sometimes to sit down and maybe write little lines between under the where the beats are, to make sure you really understand the rhythm, than taking your flute and learning the wrong rhythm because you didn't analyze it previously. So yeah, but now I don't practice that much because I work a lot, but I practice when I can now. I kind of live on my investments of practicing earlier, and I play. And well, when I teach, sometimes I play with my students and all that stuff. So I don't know exactly how much I practice because I don't have a schedule anymore. So that's it.
Alicia Sablin wants to know, I'm a beginner. How do you differentiate the sound of low notes, high notes, and the higher notes? I get so confused whether I'm in the middle or the highest register.
Okay. So someone is asking, what's the name of the person?
Alicia.
Alicia is asking, how do I know when I'm changing octave? If I'm in the second octave or the third octave? Yeah, well, I've had students with that issue before. That's not an easy one, because it's about, your brain will make new connections while you're learning, and so it's gonna get better. Maybe start with scales, because scales, you have one note after the other, so that could help. Let's say you do a G major scale, you can do, then you stop there, you go from there, and you hear that it's one note after the other, and you focus on that. What you can do as well is practice octaves. So you have an F here, so you'll hear that it's going higher and then lower. And maybe also when you listen to music, maybe listen to melodies with just one instrument, or if you listen to orchestra or pieces that have more than one instrument, try to focus on the melody line and visualize if it's going up or down, those types of things, because it's just about putting those two things together, and it's gonna come, I think. But when you listen, focus, is it going up, is it going down? Maybe sing, do octaves, and you should get there.
How long does it take to get a low C? I'm a beginner and it's the hardest note for me. John.
Okay, so John wants to know how long it takes to do a low C. He's a beginner. Well, maybe you don't need to do a low C right away if you're a beginner. I'm writing a method right now, and I didn't even put the low C in my method for the first book. I'll put in the second book, because I thought, why? Because most pieces that beginners play don't have a low C. All Baroque pieces don't have a low C. So I wouldn't stress too much. But once you want to make the low C, it shouldn't take long. It's just about, maybe check if your flute really doesn't have leaks, because if it leaks, it's going to be more difficult. Also, make sure I don't know if you have open hole or closed holes, but if you have open holes, maybe you need to plug one or two of your holes, because maybe when you stretch here, your finger moves a little bit, and then your ring finger of the right hand maybe moves a little bit, and then there's a leak on that key, so it might be that. And also, don't overdo it. Let's say you play the E very well. It's the same lip position to play a low E and a low C. So maybe you're thinking, oh, it's so difficult, I have to work harder. And then by working harder, you're making the sound more difficult to come out, You're making it more difficult for the sound to come out. So if you can do a low E or low D, you can do a low C. And if it's not coming out, it's not the mouth, it's really probably the fingers. Or you're doing something and you shouldn't do anything. Very often I see people that the problem is not that they're not doing enough, they're doing too much. And we're told from a very young age that when it doesn't work, we have to try harder. And I'm trying to change that in my mindset right now and say try softer. Because sometimes we try, and we try so hard that it's let's say you try so hard to get that low C, and you tighten some muscles so much that those tightened muscles are the reason why you can't get your low C. You know, that happens a lot. So
Yure wants to know what how should I improve my double tonguing?
okay, so to improve your double tonguing, you can watch our video about double tonguing and triple tonguing. You can practice just the ka on certain notes. So you can do scales like that, ka 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 ka, and then you can go kata 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 kata, and then taka 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 ta, and you can even practice that when you're not playing the flute. So you're walking down the street, you're waiting for the bus, you're doing the dishes, kata 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 kata, taka 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 kata, and practice it kata 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 kata. This way, when you do taka 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 kata kata, it's easier. And yeah, you can double note. So let's say you do. But sometimes what's difficult with double tonguing is changing the tongue and the note at the same time. So it's also interesting to practice it like, let's say you do EJ1 in the Tafanel and Gobert. And you don't have to do it fast. You do what you control. If you control this speed, you play this speed, ta ka ta ka ta, and then eventually you'll go a bit faster and a bit faster, and you'll get to you know. But don't, like, you can't go at that speed right away. And maybe sometimes it's difficult to play slowly, so put a metronome very slowly and don't go faster than that. And ta ka ta ka ta ka, and you'll get there. Take EJ1, and you don't have to do the whole thing. Take 1 or 2 lines and do it in a circle, because you're not, you know, and it's gonna get there.
Yuzo Young wants to know, are you familiar with whistle tones? If so, how do you incorporate the thing you learned from practicing whistle tones into playing pieces?
Okay, so there's a question about whistle tones. Whistle tones is it's a technique that's used in contemporary music. So if you want to use it in pieces, it's probably going to be in contemporary music pieces. But you can also practice them just for fun. It's good for the sound, especially the high register. So there's different ways to do them. You can do like one single note like that. Or you can do what they call in French again a balayage, or like a, you know, where you go from low whistle tone to higher ones, like, wait. So there's different ways to practice it like that. And yeah, you might find them in some contemporary pieces. I don't know what else to say about that.
I think a lot of people also associate whistle tones with like bettering their tone, like
yeah,
because there's harmonics and stuff in there, so you get to hear these harmonics you don't necessarily.
Yeah, a lot of people use whistle tones to better their sound. Yeah. I don't know.
It's more high register stuff, really.
Yeah.
Like higher tonalities.
Yeah.
Higher frequencies. Couple more.
But you can also compose and use them in your composition.
Yeah, exactly,
you know,
exactly,
nothing keeps you from composing.
This is a kind of abstract question. How long should I study flute for it to play very well?
Okay, how long should I study flute for it to play very well?
For yourself to play well.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, to play very well. So It really depends. It depends so much on how much you practice, if you have a teacher or not, if your teacher's any good. It can, like sometimes teacher can even teach you something that's not helpful, and make it even longer. But sometimes they can make it very much shorter because they make you understand and be more conscious of things. Then you don't need to practice that much because you know how to do things. It's a whole, and but I remember a teacher who told me you had to do like she thought 15 years to be a very good flutist. 10 to 15. She said 10 if you're exceptional. 15 is like the average of someone who works a lot and has, yeah.
Last question.
But I don't know. I didn't do a study about that, so
sure.
I'm just saying numbers, random numbers.
Flo wants to know, I have the problem that my air hole isn't right in the middle, and sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not, and because of that, I don't always get a nice sound. And if I put the flute more to the right spot, it doesn't even work either.
Okay, so you have a sideway embouchure. That's what I understand.
I guess that's where it is.
Like you don't play in the middle like that, you play a little bit on the side.
Maybe.
Okay, there's no problem in playing on the side. A lot of very great flutists play on the side. I think it has to do with the teeth, because you put your flute on your teeth, really. Like the chin is there, so it's more on the teeth, so if your teeth are more on one side, or it might make your flute go on the side, and then maybe there's many different reasons that can explain why you play on the side, and it doesn't really matter. The importance is that the air hits the right spot on the flute. So I wouldn't worry about trying to bring it back to the middle if it sounds better on the side. Yeah, but I don't know if you have a teacher, but a teacher could help you with that. And maybe it's not even the sideway embouchure that's making your sound more difficult to come out. Maybe you're pushing your upper lip too much in front. Maybe like that can be so many. Maybe you're smiling when you play. There could be so many different reasons that are not because your flute is on the side. So that's it. No more questions. So I hope this was helpful. So remember, if you're looking for a flute, you can check the Flute Center of New York and use our code TFC. If you are looking for some of our things that we sell, you can look down. There's all the merch on our store. If you want lessons, just email us at info@theflutechannel.com, and we will email you all the information about the Skype lessons. And
Odyssey of Ascension just gave us $20 on Super Chat.
Wow, so 2 people gave us money on Super Chat. Luc and Odyssey of Ascension. Wow, so nice. Thank you so much. And so, yeah, if you want lessons, email us. It works super well. I do it with a couple of students, and it works very well. And anything else?
Southwest.
Oh yeah, go and vote for us for South by Southwest, because you have until Friday to vote for us. We want to do our talk there, and so if you vote for us, it really helps us to be accepted there, and we would be so.
Link is in the comments.
Yeah, the link is in the comments, so check it out. And thank you so much for doing that. And I hope this was helpful. If you liked it, please like it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe, and see you next time. Thanks so much.